to episode 9 of Eat, Drink, Write, an Urban Fantasy Whiteboard. Today we are going to be talking about fight scenes. I am Sherry Ellison.
I'm Taylor Ellison.
And first things first, what are we drinking today?
Drinking champagne, I believe Corbel.
This one is actually Michelle Brut pink champagne.
Lovely.
I was out of the Corbel. So we're doing the Michelle. And we are eating some fancy schmancy stuff today. I've made some artichokes, and we have melted butter to dip the leaves in and mayonnaise to dip the leaves in.
It's so good.
They're amazing. I'm going to post pictures on the website. So how was your week?
It was great. I finished my first draft of the book that I've been working on.
Woo!
So
That's huge.
it is huge, and now I'm working on getting the first 3 chapters clean and pretty so that I can pitch them at the coming conference.
This coming weekend?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so nervous.
It's only a little nerve-wracking.
So that's awesome.
Yeah,
so
thank
you're
you.
ready to pitch it.
Maybe.
Okay. That's good. I spent the week getting caught up. Had to work on my crafting business as well. I've got another business. I've got my law firm, and then I've got my Dragon Craft Creations. It's a business that I have both an Etsy store and a booth up in Helen, Georgia. And so I've been putting that on the back burner while I was dealing with court and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So this week I had to get all that stuff back in working order. The other main thing that I did that is important for this podcast is I made our website.
Yeah.
So it's still a little bit of a work in progress. I'm learning, huge learning curve. I had to Google every step of the way to figure out what I was doing.
Yeah.
But y'all go check it out. It's pretty cool.
It does. It looks really good.
I'm learning the pages. We've got an About Us page, which I still need a blurb from you on so that I can put information about you.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the time this is posted, I'll have that done.
Yeah, we'll see.
And it has an eat page, a drink page, a write page, and then we can post just random blogs for you all to come look at. So I'll be posting the pictures of these gorgeous, beautiful artichokes and the champagne that we're drinking out of fancy schmancy glasses today. Mm-hmm. So I'll be posting those on the website. So y'all will have to come check that out. So we can just jump straight into fight scenes.
Yeah.
Which is something that I've always struggled with.
Same. And I feel like I can never quite get them right. And I am always like, how do you write a fight scene? Like, how do you do this? So I'm glad we're covering this today because...
What was interesting to me is after doing all the research for this podcast, I went back and looked at some of my fight scenes, and what I learned while researching, I had to change up what I've written. So
yeah,
it was
definitely
helpful for me, and hopefully it'll be helpful for our listeners too.
Yeah.
So I've got some things to consider. To me, fight scenes are the hardest scenes to write except for sex scenes.
Yeah.
Sex scenes are incredibly difficult as well.
I could see that.
But after sex scenes, fight scenes, because you don't want it to be boring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he threw a right punch.
Right,
a
yeah.
left undercut. I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah.
So I've got some little points that we can talk about, and I'm sure you've probably come across the same things and what you've got, so we'll see how we go.
Yeah.
My first point is that a fight scene has got to move the plot forward.
That is exactly my first point. So,
okay.
Yeah.
No needless violence.
Yeah.
If you can delete the scene and the plot still moves forward, then you don't need it.
Yeah, that's one of the points that I have too. And I think that's like a really good point to make because it's fun to write action. Like everybody likes to write action. It's exciting and, it gets your blood pumping and all that kind of stuff. But if it does nothing for the story, then, there's not necessarily a reason to have it there.
Right. I agree. It doesn't necessarily have to move the plot forward physically. It can move it forward mentally.
Yeah. I saw that too. And I saw another point that says, if the fight causes a transition in the story, whether that's in your character,
yes,
another character, whether it's the plot, the setting, any of that stuff, if something crucial has been changed because of this fight, leave it in.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of times is the purpose of fight scenes.
I think so too.
To bring one of those changes that needs to happen to get your plot going forward.
Right.
The next thing I had was, how does the scene build your character arc?
Yeah, I have something similar where it's pretty much the same thing. How does it improve your characterization? Mm-hmm. So essentially the same idea, and I think that's super important.
So I've got, how does your character feel about this fight?
Mm-hmm.
Why does your character feel the need to fight? Is it like honor, survival, protection? In the Patricia Briggs series, Mercy Thompson, a lot of her fight motivation is protection of others.
Yeah.
What does the decision to, how does the decision to go into this fight affect their goals?
Yeah.
Is it going to create a barrier to their goals, but yet they feel like they have to do it. They have no choice. And what type of fighter is your character? Is your character a mental fighter, a mental strategist, so that instead of being the big blundering fighter type that you envision,
right,
going in and powerful, physically powerfully dominating the person they're fighting, is it a mental strategy? So that's going to also affect how you write this fighting scene. Is it a physical battle or is it a mental battle?
Yeah.
And then after that point,
I have more to say.
Okay.
Just like along those same points, it's I think it's a good way to get into why your character makes the choices that they do, because obviously they've entered this fight for a reason. They want to fight this enemy for a reason. And like you said, you mentioned Mercy being, she fights for others. But I think, why do they choose to go in it mentally rather than physically? Are they afraid of their enemy? Or, do they choose to go into it reluctantly because, they don't want to actually fight this person or whatever? So I think there's a lot that you can tease out about your character themselves just by viewing what their choices are in a fight.
That's a great idea.
Also, I think it's important to think about what are the stakes for each character, because that's also going to influence their choices in a fight. What are they fighting for? Are they fighting to protect someone, or are they fighting just because they want to fight? And that's another character introspection that you can do.
Talking about what you learn about the character through a fight scene, in my Dragon Watchers book with Kada, she's the one who's from Atlanta who ends up in a whole different world, where we discussed whether that was even urban fantasy or not. She runs.
Yeah.
I mean, and so you learn a lot about her, at least in the beginning. She runs.
Right.
She's an Atlanta part-time college student, works in her mom's store, kind of carefree. What the heck is she going to know about fighting?
No, exactly.
Of course she runs.
I think that's so important to relate your character's actions to who they are the rest of the time. Because, I'm telling you, if I get into a fight, even though I've been, I've done Taekwondo before, my first reaction isn't going to be like, I'm going to, dominate this fight. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to be like, I'm out. See ya. I'm running.
Peace out, man.
So, obviously, if I'm just a college student and, all of that, I'm gonna get out of there.
So that was, and she does grow through the course of this book.
Right.
Kada does. But I do remember her first fight scene, and man, she booked it. She was hightailed it out of there.
Good, and I think that's so important to think about when you're writing a fight scene, because not everyone is just going to jump in fist flying. Because some people don't even know how to make a fist or how to throw a punch very well, and so that's going to affect how a fight goes.
Definitely.
Okay, you can move on now.
Okay, next point. Fights are fast, and so should your scenes be.
Yes, I have the same thing. Fight scenes should not slow the pace.
Correct. So, and one way to do that is to use short, quick sentences. Watch your verbs.
Yep.
Action verbs are huge.
Use action a lot. I've also read, don't use too many adverbs because it slows down. Use action to describe what's happening in your fight.
So, verbs like swinging, reeling, staggering, collapsed, those are all vivid action verbs.
Right.
Mix in dialogue if it's appropriate. You and I were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
Today I was looking at some Patricia Briggs books and some fight scenes, and she is excellent at using dialogue in the middle of a fight scene. The character starts screaming something and then is cut off because of the action. That builds tension. It is an incredibly effective way to show the action and the fear and all of that that's going on. So dialogue can help.
I agree. And also just imagine a fight scene where you've taken a few hits, and so maybe you want to say something to slow it down. Not you as the writer, but the character wants to slow it down and give themselves some time to recuperate, and then maybe that sentence gets cut off, and so they don't have time to recuperate, and that's going to affect, I think, how the rest of the fight goes.
I think so too. You don't want to get bogged down in thoughts and feelings. There's going to be time after the fight to evaluate. Remember how fast a fight is going. There are going to be thoughts and feelings.
Definitely.
But don't this is not the time to sit down and analyze, oh, I'm going to feel so bad if I hit this,
Right.
Okay,
No,
you
things
gotta
just
hit that
happen.
person.
Yeah. You don't have time to think about, oh, this will break their nose. No,
Right.
you just do it.
Right. The action is happening now. So think about it all later, but you do need to portray the internal thoughts and emotions of your character, because especially like Kada, who once she does have to stand and fight, she doesn't want to be there. And
Right.
so it is important to have some insight into her mental thoughts while she's fighting.
I think so too, because if she doesn't want to be there, she's probably thinking about whatever way she can get out of this fight.
Yeah.
She's probably looking around and being like, where is my exit? Can I
Right.
get out? Oh, I need to punch this dude. Okay, where's my next exit? Like there's
Hold that thought.
hold that thought. I gotta punch this guy really quick, and then again start looking for my exit.
Yes. So basically, don't bog it down with a long monologue, but we do need to have those thoughts.
Yeah.
In the heat of battle, decisions are split second. So yeah, this isn't the time where they're going, if I use this, or if I pick up this stick and it's, oh my God, what can I do? There's, you grab the stick and hit him over the head with it. You don't ponder that.
Right.
Be aware of your word choice.
Definitely.
Because word choice can slow that pace down, and you're in a...
Because if you use long words, then
Yeah.
it's going to be longer sentence to read. It's going to be a lot more thinking about what they're thinking about, and they're probably thinking stick, punch, run.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Did you have more on that one before I move to the next point?
No, most of what I have is, keep the fight short, and I think that also depends on the style of the fight.
That's true,
Because
too.
you might have a battle in a fantasy book where there are armies going on.
Like the Alona Andrews battle,
Yeah.
their whole entire... She has, in her urban fantasy, there's one-on-one fights that Kate Daniels deals with, and then there's actual battles with her father's armies and, that kind of thing. So two totally different styles of fighting scenes that were having to be dealt with in that.
Right. And so I think for, those battles, obviously they're going to be longer. They're going to be more pages.
Right.
Whereas if you're writing a one-on-one fight or a one-on-two fight, it's still going to happen very fast. So it should not be drawn out for pages and pages of your novel.
The other thing, and if I think about it, we'll look at some of Patricia Briggs' actual fight scenes
Yeah,
if
definitely.
we have time at the end of this. There was one in Rivermarked where there's individual battles going on at the same time as a larger battle is going on.
Right.
And so you have Mercy seeing the big battle that's happening in the river and her immediate issues that are going on while that battle's going on. And so Patricia was able to write that whole scene from both perspectives. We saw the one-on-one fighting going on plus the big battle going on that was going on in the background.
Yeah.
She did an amazing job. And while I was researching this, I started pulling out urban fantasy books to see how those fight scenes were done. Amazing how these
I think it'd be a good idea to study those authors, which we've talked about before, trying to study our favorite authors and it not going so well because we just end up reading the whole story. But
Yes.
I think it'd be beneficial to sit down and read only those scenes.
I think so too. I mean, that it was very eye-opening for me, and I have pondered a lot about my own scenes in my books after having done this research and then reread Patricia Briggs and Alana and Andrews. Boy, that's really good champagne. I haven't had that much. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good thing for any writer to do, even published writers, is to go and read how other writers do it, because you also don't want to get bored.
Right.
Make your scenes boring and the
Like,
same
oh,
thing.
okay, there have been 3 punches. Oh, he kicked him. Oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to the next point, think about your character's weaknesses and how that's going to affect this fight scene. It can add tension if your reader knows about your character's weakness and the bad guy is doing something that's going to be really bad for your character because of this weakness. And we know it, but your character doesn't necessarily know it's coming, and that just increases that tension.
Or even if your character does know it's coming, it's another way for them to panic.
That's true.
In the face of this battle. The book that I just finished, one of my character's weaknesses is that using magic tires her out. It is very exhausting for her, and her enemy has way more stamina than she does. So in their fight, he's tossing stuff at her, making her use more magic, and she's going to get more and more tired
Does
as
your
the fight goes
bad
on.
guy know her weakness?
Oh, yes, he does.
Okay, so he's doing it on purpose.
Absolutely.
So that it can be either way. I think that the bad guy might not know the weakness, but we as the reader know, and so it's very tenseful is not a word. I'm a writer.
I think tense is a good. Tense
It
alone
makes
is a good
us-
word.
It makes us, the reader, tense. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
To know that, oh my God, our main character has this weakness, and this bad guy, this is going to be really, really bad for our main character,
Yeah.
even if the bad guy doesn't know it.
Right.
But it's also very tenseful. That's not the word.
You can just say
It
tense.
is very tense.
It's okay.
It is also very tense to the reader if the bad guy does know what he's doing.
Yeah.
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 Using the senses.
Yes.
This is huge.
I think it's important to use every sense in a fight scene.
I think so too.
And that includes taste. And that includes
Absolutely.
touch. And that includes smell.
And it's all gross.
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Blood has a specific smell.
Yeah.
It has a specific taste.
Right.
So if you get punched in the face and your lip bleeds,
You're going to taste that. It's like metallic and in both scent and taste. It's metallic.
the feel of blood on your hands or your face,
Or even just the surroundings.
the squish of blood under your feet on the battlefield if
Yeah.
it's a big battle.
Right.
I mean, these are all things that are huge in making a fight scene more real.
Yes.
And more
vivid. Yeah.
Blood can be slick and hot and wet, and it spatters and it lands in your mouth or it lands on your face.
Right. And you hear the squish of it. And you hear, or even if you're using weapons or if you're using magic, do you hear the clang of metal on metal?
Yes, I had exactly of that. I had, don't forget the sounds. We've got the clang of swords if it's a
Yes.
sword. Now, in urban fantasy, there may or may not be swords. Alana Andrews did use swords, and
Yeah.
hers is urban fantasy.
Yep.
The sound of a gunshot,
The crunch of a bone.
the smack of a punch.
Yep.
Yeah. The grunts of pain.
Yeah.
Don't forget, this stuff hurts.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be people grunting and screams and fear and those sounds, the sounds of fear. The taste of sweat.
Yep.
Sweat dripping down your face.
Even the smell of
the
sweat.
sting of sweat in your eyes.
And is the setting, like, is it hot? Is it humid outside? Is that going to slow your character down? And do they feel it as if, like, they're swimming through the air because it's so thick?
the sweat on your palms? Are you going to drop your weapon because
Right.
your hands are slick? Or the blood on your palms?
Right.
Or is it cold and their hands are so numb they can't hold on to their sword or their gun or whatever it is?
Right. I think you're right. I think it's a very good way to pull your reader into the story and be in that fight with your character, and that can help keep it from being a boring scene.
I think so too. And don't forget the reality of a fight. It hurts. It hurts to get hit in the face. I don't know if anybody has ever that's listening has been hit in the face. I have been.
I'm pretty sure it also hurts to hit someone in the face.
And your hands. Yeah, it's not like on the movies where you can, throw all these punches. It hurts.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have realistic reactions. If your character is a veteran fighter, okay, they probably are used to that and they can work through it. But
Right.
Kata, who wants to run, if she gets hit in the face for the first time in her entire life,
she's going to be,
she'll be down on
Yeah.
the ground crying.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, it's have real reactions.
yep.
Leave details for your readers to fill in.
I have that too.
At one of the seminars that we went to in Atlanta, I had some of my work critiqued, and I was writing monsters. I had a monster scene, and the critiquer said, "You've got too much detail.
Yeah.
Let your reader fill in some of those blanks." Well, it's the same thing for a fight scene.
I think so. I think you can definitely make your reader's imagination work for you. And I think it's better that way.
I think so too. Let their imagination fill in the scene.
Yeah.
A really cool quote that I came across by Kristen Kiefer. She had written an article on Well Storied, is the website Well Storied. She said, "Be a painter, not a choreographer."
Oh, I like that.
How amazing is that?
No,
that
that's
was
great.
That was right on point for this. Great quote.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I have something similar where, don't add too much detail to your choreography.
Right.
And I think choreography is a great word for fight scenes because
Yes.
you are designing how they're moving and how they're reacting to each other and what they're planning next. And I think not giving too much detail is better than bogging it down with extraneous words and actions and motions where your reader can think about it. Your reader can,
Right.
their imagination can help you out.
Yeah, you don't want to say right punch here, left punch here, you do karate, whatever the kicks are called.
Right.
You know, that is not an interesting fight.
Right.
But the thought of that, the painting of that, the strokes of the fight are important.
I think it's more important to say a blow landed and which side of my face is hurt, as opposed to they threw their left punch and hit me in the right side of my face.
Yeah, yeah.
Now it hurts and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. If you have several fight scenes within your book, make them all different.
I think that's incredibly important.
I think so, too.
Because if you have a fight scene that's the same and then you have another fight scene and it's exactly like that first fight scene, what's the point?
Right. Yeah, you don't want all your fights to be the same. You want to throw in different obstacles to counter. If it's the same villain that you're fighting, what did your character learn from the last time?
That's exactly a point I have. What did your character learn from previous fights? Because they're probably going to do something different.
Right.
Oh, I didn't throw up my arm to block a hit. I'm going to do that this time so that I don't get hit in the face.
Or they cast a spell against this particular thing, and I'm going to be ready for it this time.
Right. You know,
So-
they're going to think about the mistakes that they made in the last fight, be it, a mistake that they made in an attack or a mistake that they made in defense.
Right. Right. I saw an interesting suggestion online, which I don't know how realistic this is, but
Yeah.
it said to take some fighting classes.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that's realistic.
I mean, I don't have time to go and sign up for a fighting class.
I mean, me neither, but
but that is an incredibly good idea for learning how to, I always act out everything when I'm writing anyway. I sit across from my husband. We share an office. We both work from home. And so when I'm writing, I'll be making all these facial all these contortions on my face, and I'm acting things out, and he just watches me and thinks it's funny. But, to act out a fighting scene, it would be very helpful to have had a class in Taekwondo or whatever form of fighting is going on for your client.
I think so.
Your, character.
And, I grew up in Taekwondo classes. And so I wonder, I've never really thought about it, but I wonder how much it does influence how I can visualize a fight.
Yes.
Because I've done sparring and I've done
You've done
fighting
it
tournaments.
ever since
and
you were itty bitty too. So
Right.
it's ingrained in you, and you don't know how you would think of it otherwise, because you've done that. You mean you're a black belt, so
Exactly.
you've done that.
I
since you
don't
were
I don't know
itty-bitty.
any other way. Like I've never not had the knowledge on fighting. So I just wonder, it's interesting. Maybe I'll go back and read some of my fight scenes and see how maybe my prior knowledge translates into my writing.
Yeah, I mean, and you've done tournaments and stuff too. So which is stylized fighting, which has rules where some of the scenes that we're going to be writing are not going to have any rules. It's
Right.
it's a matter of survival.
Dirty fighting.
Dirty fighting, but you were raised in proper honor fighting, the honor of fighting.
Right.
So I wonder, I would be curious to go and now read some of your fight scenes and see how much of that Taekwondo that you grew up with has come into your work.
Yeah, me too. It's interesting to think about.
It is. Take into account what happens after the battle. So in Frickin' Fairies, my character Beck, she
Yeah.
vomits.
Oh, yeah.
She absolutely right off the bat vomits because she killed people. Well, she killed Faye
Things.
things, and she'd never. I mean, this is a girl who owns a bookstore who has been married and divorced. That's her life. She's totally mortal.
Yeah.
And she finds herself in this battle where she was fighting for her life. Her motivation was survival.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that she was fighting to protect anybody else. It was survival.
Yeah.
And killing people and the smell of the blood and all. Her first reaction after the fight was over and things calmed down, she vomited.
Which I think makes sense. And I mean, it depends on your character. Like you said, she owns a bookstore and she was divorced and, whatever. That's her life, is a quote unquote normal life.
Right.
So her first reaction might be to vomit.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to think about how your character would take in what a battle went through, like what she went through in that
I mean,
battle.
maybe some would be exhilarated.
True, yeah.
Some might be scared. Some might be proud.
Yeah.
I defeated.
Oh, I survived.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still here.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't realize I had that in me.
Yeah.
That, which is a kind of character growth.
Right.
But yeah, you got to remember and react, have your characters react appropriately after the battle's over.
Right, because if you also have a character who's going through his 300th fight, it might be a little bit different than Beck. He's probably not going to throw up after this fight,
Right.
but he still might be like, okay, another fight down. I survived it. What's going to be next?
And there's always going to be deflation of that adrenaline. No
Yes.
matter how seasoned a fighter you are, adrenaline carries you through, and when it's over, that is going to come down.
That reminds me of a talk that we went to at Dragon Con. There's a writing track talk at Dragon Con where you can take specific writing classes and go to certain talks given by other authors. And we saw this guy, and I can't remember his name right now. I'll have to look him up. But he talked about fighting and writing. And he was a veteran, and he had, combat experience.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he was such an interesting
we
guy.
sat in the front row on that
We
one.
sure did. But he talked about how no matter how many fights your character has been in, you're always going to feel that adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the 300th fight or whether it's the 5th fight or whether it's the first fight, there's always going to be that spark of adrenaline at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how seasoned you are. There's always going to be that adrenaline and that preparation to fight.
And physically, no matter how seasoned you are, your body physically reacts to the coming down off of that.
Yeah.
No matter what your mental strength is, your body, there's science there. You can't overcome science by, your character's not going to, like I'm thinking of the movie Roadhouse and how, I don't know if you ever saw that one, but
I don't think I have.
I mean, it's a good movie, but it's not urban fantasy or anything, but it just, the way his character, the main character, I'm going to stitch myself up and there's no pain there. Okay. Maybe they do have the mental strength to, but there's still some reaction to the battle and the coming down off of the battle.
Yeah.
Make it realistic. I kind of had a hard time, and maybe it's a male-female thing. Maybe to me, I feel pain. I just can't imagine that you can sew yourself up without. I mean, he was all tough guy and everything.
Yeah.
I don't care how tough you are. Sticking a needle through damaged skin and it's gonna hurt.
Your characters are allowed to wince and
yes.
taking sharp breaths.
I would have liked it if he had winced or taken a sharp breath. To me, that would have made him even more manly than he was trying to come across as by not reacting.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what the point to that was, but anyway, this wine is really good.
The point was make your reactions, the aftermath, realistic.
Accurate.
Yes.
Okay. Also, given that we're talking about urban fantasy, know your weapons.
Definitely.
Is it magic? Is it guns? Is it knives? Know those things. How does magic work? And I think you've said that you've got a lot more on magic. That's all I had on magic.
I have a few points.
How does a gun feel in your hand if it's guns? How heavy is a weapon? How do you hold a knife? How do you swing a knife?
Well, and along those lines, I think it's important to know what damage those weapons will cause. Because if you're going to use a gun, obviously it's going to put a hole in the person. Is that going to kill that person? Are you aiming to kill? How often are you likely to kill your opponent with a knife versus a gun? Are you trying to kill them and so therefore you use a gun rather than a knife? So know what you're using, what you have.
And what the impact of that weapon is.
Right.
Right. Okay. Tell me more about magic.
So I just have a few points that, I think in urban fantasy and fantasy, I think magic is going to be at the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
And, like you just said, use it like a character might use a weapon. Like they would use their fists. Like they would use a gun.
Okay.
It's part of their artillery. They're going to use it. If it's at their beck and call,
mm-hmm.
they're going to use it. Is there a physical cost for using magic? Whereas, you have a knife and you can stab someone with a knife, but if you use the magic, is it going to physically cost you?
Right.
And so think about that because that's also going to affect how your fight goes.
I have a story.
Tell the story.
Okay, so when I was younger, we played Dungeons and Dragons.
Did you have magic?
My character did, and
right.
I didn't think it through when I used it. So this was way back in the days before the internet was what it is now. I'm dating myself.
She's seen dinosaurs, y'all.
But we played Dungeons and Dragons on Genie. It was before there was Internet Explorer. I mean, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so we would meet in this, I don't even know what it would be called these days, but we played in this, we all met online in this particular place.
Yeah, like a chat room kind of thing.
Chat room type of thing. And my character was a bard and had magic.
Yeah.
And so we're in this battle, and my character's like, I am going to use this particular spell. And I hadn't read up on exactly what this spell does. So I ended up, the dungeon master was like, are you sure you want to do this spell? And I'm thinking, why is he
You
asking
didn't
me
think
that?
right then, oh, maybe I shouldn't do it. Let me
Well,
think
and
about
as
this.
I tried to back out of it, he goes, never mind, it's too late. You know how dungeon
Oh,
masters
yes,
are.
yes.
So I ended up casting this spell, and it went out in a fan in front of me and hit all of my teammates that were standing anywhere within that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I damaged all my teammates. So you got to
Sad.
think about that kind of thing too when you're writing a scene.
Right, because that affects the entire fight.
Right. And you can't, as the writer, you can't say, well, I'm going to fix that problem. You should not, I don't think, write that kind of, you shouldn't fix that.
Yeah.
If
it
your
happens, it
character's
happens.
going to make that mistake, then let that mistake happen and
I think
the
so, too.
consequences happen.
Especially if it's more likely for your character to make that mistake. Like, if it makes sense for them to make that mistake, let them do it.
So, like Kata, who in Dragon Watchers is new to her magic, that would be a mistake that she made.
Yeah.
And it would be totally realistic for her to make a mistake.
Right. And I think that makes the story more interesting, too. Because now suddenly, oh, you just injured your entire team.
Right.
So now the rest of the fight is going to be, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So I think that is an important point. Know your magic, know your weapons.
I think so too.
And what can happen with those.
So I was just going to say a little bit about my fight scenes in the books. Beck in Frickin' Fairies, the one that she vomited afterwards.
Right.
She had the adrenaline. There's another factor in this book with a weapon that she happens to have on her that affects her more than she understands that it's affecting her.
Yeah.
So that fight scene was quite interesting to write, and I thought I had done it well until I did this preparation and went and was looking at Mercy Thompson's fight scenes and all that. So I am going to do some rewriting on those.
Yeah.
Dragon Rider, my Dragon Watchers, it is part of her character arc that she goes from running in that first fight scene to standing her ground and fighting for what she believes in, or what she has learned she believes in. Because in the beginning, she doesn't even know that she believes in anything. She's just a kid going to college.
Yeah.
And then I recommend that people go and read like Patricia Briggs' fight scenes and Alona Andrews' fight scenes, any other urban fantasy writer fight scenes. I think that's a great idea.
I think so too. I think another important thing about writing fight scenes is make the tension as tense as possible.
True.
Is your character going to make it? Not a clue.
Yeah, your reader should not be able to put the book down in the middle of a fight scene.
I agree with that. Because, especially since it is supposed to be fast-paced, and it is supposed to be go, go, go.
Yeah.
And it is supposed to be suspenseful. I think it's very important to keep the tension high in your fight scenes. So if your character gets through a fight scene and there's not some kind of tension in your reader, then I think that you need to think about increasing your stakes.
I agree. And I think at the end of the fight scene, your reader should be coming down off of adrenaline as well. Just
yeah,
like
I think
your character.
so. I think so.
I think so too. That's about all I've got on fight scenes at this point. Did you have anything more that I left out?
I don't think so. I think that's mostly what I got.
Do you have an interview question for us today?
I sure do. Do you listen to music when you write? And what kind of music do you listen to?
Oh, that's a great question. I get distracted easily, so I tend not to listen to music. But if I do, it's always soundtracks. I like the soundtrack to Robin Hood, the one with Kevin Costner, the old one.
Yeah.
That soundtrack is an amazing soundtrack to write to.
Yeah.
I also like to listen to the Lord of the Rings soundtrack.
It's a good one. Yeah.
The problem with listening to soundtracks is that what you're writing doesn't always correspond to the tenseness of the music and that in the background.
I personally found that it doesn't matter for me though.
See, I'm too distracted by the music. So I do not usually listen. I do better in quiet.
Yeah.
What about you?
I do have to have music. And it typically has to be music as opposed to listening to a TV show in the background. I can't have words because like you, I do get distracted. But with music, I have 2 playlists on Spotify that I've created specifically for writing.
Oh, neat.
And
you'll have to post that for our people.
Maybe. It's weird music, but some of them are kind of soundtracky and some of them do have words, and that playlist is more about motivation and inspiration.
Okay.
So I have songs on there that remind me of specific characters that I'm writing.
Okay.
Or I have songs on there that remind me of specific books that I've written, and maybe that's because I've heard it on the radio while I was writing that book. And so now whenever I hear that song, I think of that book.
Okay.
And then I have my other playlist, which is just techno music, and it's just very loud, just very there are no words, there's no like rhyme or reason to it really. It's just noise that allows me to focus on what I'm working on.
I think a lot of your generation does have to have that. Your generation needed to have music or TV to do homework.
Yeah.
And I was raised where you did not have that in the background.
No, I have to have some kind of sound.
Yeah, it
I
distracts me to have. I don't even like to drive with music on.
do. Ooh, that's blasphemy.
Depending on where I'm driving, like just to work, when I'm going to court,
Yeah.
I don't want music. It distracts me. I'm focused on getting to court, what's going to be faced. But if I'm going up to Helen to check on my booth for Dragoncraft Creations,
Right.
I tend to listen to podcasts.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, I like that.
I'm a big
So,
podcaster too.
Me
I
too.
have podcasts that I listen to.
Me too.
Yeah.
So, well, that's, I think, all we got today. Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget, we've got that contest going on for free merch. We have spiral notebooks, calendars, sticky notes. Leave us a review and then email us at eat.drink.write.podcast@gmail.com. Come check out our new website. I'm very proud of it. It's still a work in progress. I'm learning.
Yeah, but all of our social media is on there and everything.
All of our social media is on there. Our email is on there. Our About Us page is on there. And it is eatdrinkwritepodcast.com. So you can contact us there. Let us know what you want us to talk about.
Yep.
Thoughts on what we have talked about. We do have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Come check us out. I try really hard to keep active on those so that you all have stuff to look at, stuff that is interesting for you all to see.
Yeah, and we're open to discussions on those forums too.
Definitely. And last but not least, please visit our Patreon. It does cost money to do this. So if you could support us, that would be wonderful. It is patreon.com/EDW podcast. That's Patreon, Patreon.com. And we thank you guys for your support.
Thanks, guys.